Late Night Louie coming at you with a brand new podcast episode, the first since the draft. So I thought it was only right if we spend tonight talking about the draft. A lot of things have transpired since the end of the draft on Saturday evening, and I think now is the perfect time to talk about it. The NFL schedules are right around the corner. They've released the international schedule for the year. We're getting a game in Germany. I don't know how that one slid by me, but we're getting a game in Germany this year. Lots to discuss, lots to chew on, and let's do it. Late Night Louie coming at you on the 258th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 258th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Odd time for a pod, I know, but the schedule has just been wacky. So many people are trying to get a piece of the kid this month, want me to come on their programs and chop it up with them, and I don't mind. This is the time to do it, especially being that this is the time of the year where things slow down. Now, once we get past the draft, now you got to fill the time. You got to fill the void. So you're going to see a lot of crazy stories that come out. People are going to overanalyze things that don't need overanalyzing. And this is the time when I start talking about non-football topics. We're not there yet, okay? That's when we get to late May into June when there's absolutely nothing happening. You may get a few, people are going to really talk about these mini camps. There is nothing happening at these rookie mini camps. There's nothing happening at the veteran mini camps that happen in June. There is nothing, I mean nothing, absolutely zero to talk about, but people are going to make it a story because that's what you do this time of the year. That said, the NFL draft came and went. It was a huge buildup to one of the most, I would say, interesting drafts in recent memory. We did not know what was going to happen at the top. I predicted Trayvon Walker. I predicted Aiden Hutchinson would go second. After that, all bets were off. I did have a corner going third, just not the right one. I told you I thought Derek Stingley Jr. was the most talented football player in the entire 2022 draft class. Seems like Lovie Smith and his crew agreed with me as he went third overall, not Sauce Gardner, but he then went the very next pick thereafter to the New York Jets at 4, and then things just went from there. I thought that there would be a top 10 quarterback. I wouldn't have been shocked if there were two. There wasn't any top 10 quarterbacks. We didn't get our first until 20. There weren't any taken in the second round. And as a matter of fact, that's where I want to start today's show and the gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. I want to talk about winners and losers from the draft. And I hate this discussion. I hate winners and losers after the draft because who knows who won, who lost. We can talk about value. Value is so subjective, and people get so hung up on where you took a player, what was out there, what they deem to be better value. Says who? Who determines what's great value? Do you? The team? Everybody's got a different draft board, so there is no consensus. So who determines value? You determine value for your particular draft in your head. That's great. You can be upset about your draft and how it wasn't great value, and I might sound like I'm yelling. Maybe I need to turn my mic down a little bit. Every time I turn the mic down, then people are screaming they can't hear me. Then I turn the mic up, then I'm too loud. I got to find a happy medium. But I want to leave it where it is today. If it's loud, it's loud. It's going to be loud today. I'll turn it down next time. But winners and losers, it's so subjective. Just like value in a draft is subjective. I could go on and on about that topic, but I'm not. What I'm going to tell you is that there were some teams that I thought got better as a football team due to the picks that they made in the draft. And again, there's no way to quantify that. You can't say that a team got significantly better because we think the players that they took are really good and really talented, and they're going to come in and help. Teams take talented players all the time and they don't pan out. Teams take 2 first-round picks and both of them turn out to be cheeks. It happens. All right. It's rare, but it happens. So you can't just look at a draft already, 4 or 5 days after it's taken place and say, this team clearly won the draft. This team clearly reached for this player here. Says who? 2 years from now, we won't be talking about whether you reached for a defensive tackle in the second round or a running back in the third round or a corner in the first round or a safety in the fifth round. We won't be talking about reaches if that guy's already proven to be a Pro Bowl type player, an all-pro type player. Who cares where you took him? I do like to talk about teams that are perceived to have done a tremendous job and look like they've gotten better on paper. And the way I really look at it is, how much talent did you procure in the draft? How did you make use of your picks? You come into the draft with X amount of picks. Do you leave the draft with X amount of picks, or do you leave with some other number that we couldn't have foreseen? Did you maneuver your way around the board? Did you make the best selections for your team based off of needs, yet what the board spoke to you and said, and a combination of the two coming together and this beautiful confluence of things that ended up happening where you make a selection that really benefits your team, hopefully now into the future? I think a lot of people love what the Ravens did, and how could you not? And I've talked about the Ravens ad nauseum as one of those teams that just knows how to draft. They just get it. They understand the draft. They understand what needs to be done, what a player looks like, smells like, feels like, and how that kind of works itself into being a Raven. They just identify players that have Baltimore Raven written all over them. They've done this for years. They did it again. Yeah, the Ravens draft was exceptional, or at least it looks like it's exceptional on paper. Getting the players, and we'll go through a couple of these teams real quick. There are one or two in particular that I am smitten with. My favorite draft is the New York Jets, so we'll start there with the New York Jets because I think they won, and not just did the Jets win the draft, I think this offseason. So first and foremost, you got a draft where Sauce Gardner is your first pick, 4th overall. Garrett Wilson is your second pick. That's number 10 overall. And then the 26th pick, you double back, come into the first round and get Jermaine Johnson the second, who I had as a top 10 pick in my mock draft. Again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I've talked to some people that didn't think this kid was worth the first round pick. I've talked to other people that thought that, top 10 was a little bit too high for him, but, anything in the mid to late first round was excellent value for him. And then you get him in 26. I think it's a steal. And what were some of the biggest needs the Jets had coming in to the draft? Corner, edge rusher, wide receiver, and they knocked them down, bing, bang, boom, in the first round, just like that. But they weren't done there. Breece Hall, the best running back, and that was a consensus, best running back in this draft class. They get him in the second round. And then in the third round, they get my favorite player in the draft, not favorite tight end, favorite player in this year's draft, Jeremy Ruckert out of Ohio State. You get Max Mitchell in the 4th round as a tackle, and then you get defensive end Michael Clemens out of Texas A&M. I love the fact that they got 7 players in the first 4 rounds, and then they got the hell out of the draft. To me, that's how you do it. I don't need 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. That's great. And that's for somebody else. Let the Ravens load up on 18 different players and let them figure out how many of those guys are going to cut it for them and make their roster. I'm good with just the meat and potatoes. Give me the value. That's what the Jets did. They worked their way up the board. They traded up to get Jermaine Johnson. They traded up to get Breece Hall. Like, they're not playing around. They're not messing around. I don't need 11 picks. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I'm looking for. I want value, quantity. Give me quantity over quality any day in the NFL. Okay. It's cool to have 13 picks, but let's be realistic. How many of those 13 guys are actually making your football team? And I get the whole idea of, more opportunities to throw darts at the dartboard to see how many of them stick. That's great. But you know what I want? I want substance. Substance is what I'm looking for. That's the name of the game, because at the end of the day, you want needle movers. Those are the guys with high level talent. You'll get some cogs in the machine that you can't live without, and your machine doesn't work properly without these players. And you a lot of times get them in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, and that's great. But if I'm a team like the Jets, who have been a perennial doormat in the AFC East, one of the worst teams in football for like the last 5 years, 6 years running, I'm not interested in your 6th or 7th rounders. Give me high quality football players to add to what I've already done in the offseason and what I'm trying to build around my young quarterback so that I can help him get better. You had 2 tight ends that you added this offseason. All right. You add another one in Jeremy Ruckert. So you go from not having any tight end production at all to going out, adding 2 tight ends in free agency, one from the Vikings, one from the Bengals, and now you add Jeremy Ruckert. You're stocked at the tight end position. You go from having a subpar, a solid wide receiver group. It wasn't subpar. The cupboard wasn't bare, okay? You had Jamison Crowder. He's now gone. You had the kid from New England out of Miami. You re-sign him. He had a really good season. You bring him back. Smart move. You went and got Corey Davis in the offseason last year. He's a good number 2 wide receiver. The guy that I really liked in the draft last year, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss, solid rookie campaign. He's only going to get better. But none of those guys struck you as true number 1 wide receivers, which is why Joe Douglas was so aggressive this offseason in trying to add a number 1 wide receiver. Tried to trade for Tyreek Hill, tried to trade for DK Metcalf. There were interesting discussions surrounding Deebo Samuel, never really got anywhere. You take Garrett Wilson, add that to the mix of what you already have. Now you've got about 4 quality wide receivers if you're the Jets. Sauce Gardner comes in, adds value. You love what you got out of the cornerback out of UVA, Bryce Hall last season. Now you add Sauce Gardner on the other side. You went out and got Jordan Whitehead from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the safety position. Now you add another option in that secondary with Sauce Gardner, and all of a sudden now that secondary starts to look a lot more formidable. Edge rusher. You went out and you got the edge rusher from Cincinnati last offseason and tore his ACL, never got to play a snap for you. So you're hoping he's coming back healthy and ready to help. Jermaine Johnson, now on the other side, you think is going to be able to bolster that pass rush. You've still got some guys on the interior of that defensive line. You signed the New Orleans Saints defensive tackle a couple of off seasons ago, and you still have Quinnen Williams. So that defense, all of a sudden, if guys play to their true potential with a defensive-minded head coach, now with the offensive weapons that they've added in Ruckert and Hall and Wilson, the Jets really looked like a team that had a plan, and they went out and they executed. I loved the Jets draft. I thought they were outstanding in this draft. Another team that I was really impressed with, but I tell you guys this all the time about this team in particular. I said, and I talk about these teams all the time because they just get the draft. I talk about Dallas all the time. I talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, who I didn't think actually had that great of a draft. This is the first time in a long time Cincinnati's draft has really not tickled my fancy. But I said this already. Cincinnati and Buffalo were 2 of the more complete teams in the league that didn't really have a lot of holes after Cincinnati really attacked the offensive line aggressively in free agency this year. They really didn't have a ton of holes. Really, cornerback was the one. And same thing with Buffalo. Cornerback was really the one position you're like, hey, you could use a little bit of an upgrade, a little bit of a boost at the cornerback position. Outside of that, those 2 teams, and for Cincinnati, I'd like to see some defensive tackle help. Losing Larry Ogunjobi really hurts them. But I didn't think their draft was all that great, but they didn't have to have a great draft with what they were bringing back with that football team and what you have at quarterback and on the offensive side of football. That said, Jacksonville is on that list. Even though they stink every year, it's not for a lack of talent. It's for a lack of guiding that talent, putting those players in the right positions. They get talented football players. And a lot of times they disseminate their talent amongst the league. They get these players for 2-3 years. They get disgruntled. Jacksonville ultimately, this is why Jacksonville has so much money under the cap every year to spend, because they get these rookies. They're so talented, and they end up trading them somewhere else and letting them flourish elsewhere. They've done it so many times, whether it's Dante Fowler Jr. or it's Jalen Ramsey, and we can just keep going down the list of guys that have been in Jacksonville and ended up flourishing elsewhere. But they get talented football players. I bet you DJ Chark, if he stays healthy this year, plays phenomenal football for the Detroit Lions. That's what usually happens with Jacksonville. They get a guy, he's really good and talented, but they don't get the most out of him. They end up shipping him off somewhere else, and he ends up playing phenomenal football for another team. But here it is, the Jacksonville Jaguars with another strong draft. Trayvon Walker, #1 overall. They double back into the first round. I love when teams double back into the first round when there's value there. Go get it. Don't wait. Don't talk about next year. Make it happen this year. Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah, is sitting there, and they just can't pass up an opportunity to replace what they lost at the linebacker position. Remember, they lost one of their linebackers in free agency. They let him walk essentially to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you needed to really make up that loss. Joe Schobert was gone last year, coincidentally enough, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you lose my guy from UCLA, Miles Jack, who's now a Pittsburgh Steeler. And so Devin Lloyd sitting there was just made too much sense, right? Made way too much sense. So you then get Luke Fortner in the second round, fortify that offensive line at the pivot position. But then how about Chad Muma, linebacker? So I talked about the depletion of the linebacker position. They got lucky with Quincy Williams. Quincy Williams, another talented player they drafted, now playing really good football for the New York Jets. He's gone. I talked about Joe Schobert gone last year. I talked about Miles Jack gone this year in the offseason. So you needed to replenish the linebacker position. So what do? You get Devin Lloyd, and then you add Chad Muma to the mix. So 3 really quality defensive football players and in 4 picks for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then I really like Snoop Connor's game. I think he's going to be a really good complement to that running back room that features James Robinson. And a lot of people keep forgetting that they're getting Travis Etienne back. After him missing his entire rookie season with a foot injury, he's coming back. And if he's healthy and he's right, he's going to add some flash, some pizzazz, and substance to that Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And you add Snoop Connor into the mix there, a battering ram of a running back, physically built to last, a guy that can really, drive that hammer home. Robinson is a physical back, but he's like 5'9", 5'10". Snoop Connor's a big boy. He's one of those big 230-pound type running backs, 5'10", 222, and he's just physical. If you watched his brand of football at Ole Miss, he was the hammer in that offense. They had a bunch of scat backs and guys that could get in and out, slashers. He was the physical brute force of that group. I just love what they added there. And I just like what Jacksonville did in the draft. They got better as a football team. And another team that I felt like, despite not really adding a ton on the offensive side because they did that in free agency, adding defense is going to make the Jacksonville Jaguars better too. So that was another team that I was impressed with their draft. And I talked about Dallas. Look, say what you want about the Cowboys. All right. And there's a lot to say about the Cowboys, okay? The one thing you can't talk about with the Cowboys is the fact that they don't draft well. They get the draft. They understand how to draft. And you look at this draft top to bottom, this is tremendous value for the Dallas Cowboys. Tyler Smith. I actually don't like Tyler Smith. I actually think he stinks. So he holds too much. His hands are always in the wrong position. He gets beat around the edge too often. He's an athlete. He can move, but he's going to have to be coached up. If he doesn't get good coaching, that's going to be a wasted pick. I felt the same way when they drafted the kid out of Texas that just got the deal from the Miami Dolphins, Connor Williams, and he ended up stinking for the Cowboys as well. I think Tyler Smith stinks, but we'll see. He could turn out to be a really good pick for them. They get Williams, the edge rusher from Mississippi that's a ridiculous athlete. Ran the 4.46 at the combine, blew it up. He's got potential. This man had double-digit sacks in the SEC, so there is some real intrigue about him. I have questions and doubts about him, but you can't doubt the production in the best conference in all of football. So we'll see if that translates to the NFL. But that's an athlete that you're putting on the field with other great athletes on that Cowboys defense. It could get scary if he turns out to be what they think he could be. Jalen Tolbert is a sneaky good pick here out of South Alabama. He was one of my more highly rated wide receivers in this draft class. I felt like there was this first wave of receivers that we saw go in the first round. I thought there was this second wave of receivers, and I thought right on the fringe of that second wave was Jalen Tolbert. And if you wanted to put him in that third wave, he was a guy you could get right where the Cowboys got him in the third round. I think he's got a chance to be a special wide receiver. He's got a unique set of skills. He's a big receiver that can run, can jump, go attack the football in the air. I think that's a really good pick, especially for a team that lost so many receivers in the offseason. You're talking about losing three guys. I think Amari Cooper, they lost the receiver from Boise State, Cedric Wilson. I felt like they lost one more guy, but maybe that's it. But you replace them with Tolbert and Washington, James Washington from the Steelers. Not bad. I told you they were going to replace. That's what the Cowboys do at the receiver position. They replenish and replace. Jake Ferguson at the tight end position, another really good tight end. Like, they just don't miss at the tight end position for whatever reason. Any guy that they take at the tight end position ends up being really good. They got their tight end on the franchise tag. They know they're not re-signing him next year. They're not stupid. They understand that they got one more year of service out of their tight end that they franchise tag out of Stanford, and then he's going to hit free agency next year. They're not going to be able to pay him, so they replace him with Jake Ferguson. Like, they get it. You know what I'm saying? You got to give them credit. I like Deron Bland, the cornerback out of Fresno State in the 5th round. That was a guy I was eyeballing for my favorite football team as a guy that you could get maybe in the 5th, 6th round. Damone Clark is one of my favorite linebackers in this draft. Now, he slipped to the 5th round, not because of production, but because of an injury that scared teams away. He had one of those. Anytime I hear spinal and fusion in the same sentence, I'm good. I get why teams decided I'm good. Same thing that happened to Justin Ross, receiver that went undrafted from the Clemson Tigers that, of course, he landed in Kansas City with the Chiefs and has a chance to do damage. If he's healthy, that's going to be a huge acquisition for the Chiefs. But anytime I hear spinal and fusion in the same sentence, I don't care how those two end up in the same sentence. If they're in the same sentence, I'm good. And that's what happened to Damone Clark. And so teams passed on him, even though he was one of the most productive linebackers in all of college football the last couple of seasons. I love the pick in the 5th round. It's a low-risk proposition in the 5th round. If he works, you got a first-round talent, second-round talent in the 5th round. If he doesn't, it's a 5th-round pick. Who cares? I love it. John Ridgeway was a guy that I fell in love with at the combine, at the Senior Bowl. They get him in the 5th round as a defensive tackle out of Arkansas. Like, it's just really good value for the Dallas Cowboys, man. Like, this is what I'm talking about. The Cowboys just get the draft. They roll the dice on players that need, dice rolling, and scared money don't make money. You don't lay any cash down. You can't win any cash. The Cowboys stay laying down cash on the table and rolling the dice. And usually it comes up nice for them. They just don't usually coach it up well enough, and they don't get enough out of that talent, but they have talent, man. And I thought they did it again in this draft. I mean, we could look at a number of other teams that I thought had strong drafts, but those were the ones that stuck out to me the most in terms of getting, and the Eagles, I thought they had a bread, egg, cheese, milk type draft. I won't knock it. I usually don't love drafts that end with 5 players. However, the lowest you can go for me is 6 for you to even get a grade from me. But you got to add in the addition of A.J. Brown as a 6th, draft pick for the Philadelphia Eagles, to get Jordan Davis in the 1st round, to trade for A.J. Brown in the 1st round, to get the replacement for your future Hall of Fame center Jason Kelce in the 2nd round and Cam Jurgens, to get Nakobe Dean, who had an injury, but the injury that he had, is it one that should warrant him being a 3rd round pick? I'm confused. Like, we're not talking about spinal cord fusion. We're not talking about a degenerative knee injury. We're talking about a pec injury. that's enough to keep the Nakobe Dean from being a second-round pick? Okay, fine. He's got a pec injury that he just had surgery on. So you don't know what his availability will be for the upcoming season to start. You don't take him in the second round then? Everyone decided to pass on this dude like he can't play. So the Eagles get him in the third round? Are you kidding me? Like, that's ridiculous value there for a guy that on most people's big board was the first linebacker on it. To get him in the third round is insane value. And then, I like Grant Calcaterra in the sixth round as a tight end. Like, they seem to just have a factory worth of tight ends that just come through Philadelphia, and they just seem to get it right. Similar to Dallas, where they just seem to not miss at the tight end position. Grant Calcaterra was a big-time prospect for the Oklahoma Sooners before he hung up his cleats temporarily. I think it had something to do with concussions. That's what I think. I'm not sure. He goes to SMU and plays well there, and he's still the same guy. Just a different jersey. That's it. I think that's a tremendous pick in the sixth round. Say what you want about the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a really quality draft, man. I mean, it truly, really is. They got better as a football team with their draft. Let's talk about some losers. I got one big loser, and I'll give you that a little bit later on. But let's talk about some overall drafts real quick. And, drafts that I didn't necessarily find myself falling in love with. Let's look at this draft for the Green Bay Packers. So I thought the Green Bay Packers draft started out, relatively strong. Getting Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, a couple of Georgia Bulldog defenders in the first round was, I thought, great value. I mean, Quay Walker, that was a pick where you had to love the player because you took him as the very first linebacker in this draft class. I don't think many people had Quay Walker being the very first linebacker being taken in this draft class, but he's got a unique set of skills that I think translates well to the NFL. So I didn't hate that pick. But I was sure that they were going to take a wide receiver at some point in the first round. And I talked about the arrogance of this organization and how, you got Aaron Rodgers and you keep shitting on him by not giving him the targets that he could really do serious damage with. You take away Devontae Adams. It's okay to not draft the first round wide receiver when you got Devontae Adams. So you can just add anybody across from him and you'll be fine because Adams is going to command so much attention and still get the job done. He's gone now. Aaron Rodgers needs a legitimate number one. You had an opportunity with 2 first-round picks. Even if you had to package up those 2 first-round picks, you had an opportunity to get one guy that could move the needle. You got some players already on the roster that will allow that guy, if you package up those picks to go get, you have a chance to really have that guy settle into that role as the guy, as the number one wide receiver. Instead, you decide to play money ball at the receiver position like you often do, and I think that's bullshit. Aaron Rodgers spoke up after day one of the draft and talked about his disappointment in not getting a receiver. He was really high and fond of the Arkansas wide receiver, Treylon Burks, which the Packers, I think they made an attempt. They picked up the phone, called Washington. I had some intel on that. They called Washington, tried to trade up to 16. Washington didn't love the compensation that Green Bay was offering to come up to 16 and have Washington move back 6 spots and potentially miss out on some players that they really liked. And Green Bay just wasn't willing to give up what Washington was asking. So the deal fell through. And I think that was their one attempt to try and come up and get a wide receiver. That said, they get Christian Watson. I told you guys over and over and over and over and over again that Christian Watson just smelled like, looked like, felt like a Green Bay Packer. And I told you his comp was MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who left in free agency for the Chiefs. I said, this is the perfect replacement for him. He's still not a number one. MVS was not a number one. Christian Watson is not a number one for this Green Bay Packers offense. He's a good complementary piece. He's a deep threat. He stretches the football field vertically. He is not a number one wide receiver. They had an opportunity to do that. You know what they decided to do? In the 4th round, draft Romeo Doubs. In the 7th round, they decided to draft Samori Toure out of Nebraska. That's what they gave Aaron Rodgers to work with. 3 rookie wide receivers, none of which were first-round picks. They should be ashamed of themselves, honestly. They got Samuel Watkins, and they still got some guys that are holdovers from last year, including Alan Lazard, and I think you still have the kid you drafted out of Clemson last year. Amari Rodgers, and you got the veteran slot receiver, Aaron Rodgers' best friend from Kentucky. I don't know why I'm blank. I can see his face. Randall Cobb. You still got those guys, but every receiver I just named is not a number one. You had a chance to get a number one receiver, and with 2 first-round picks, you failed to do that. Again, I love the value of Devontae Wyatt at 28. I don't have a problem with Quay Walker at 22, but you needed a receiver, man, a number one wide receiver. So I did not necessarily love what they did in this draft from a receiver standpoint. I think they got some quality football players, but the goal was to get Aaron Rodgers because, look, you're only going to go as far as this offense takes you. I know that you want to play better defense, and you gave up 10 points defensively against the San Francisco 49ers in that football game. Your special teams accounted for probably, I think, what did you lose that game? 13-10? I think your special teams accounted for maybe 6 of those points that the 49ers scored, maybe 10 of them. Your defense was plenty good in that NFC divisional round game. It's not your defense you have to worry about. It's your offense. And you didn't do enough, I didn't think, to help Aaron Rodgers out with this draft. So we'll see what happens. Maybe 2 of these receivers turn out to be studs. I don't believe in Romeo Doubs, what he did at Nevada. That's cool. That's great. That's cute. And Samori Toure, I mean, this is, again, that money ball approach that the Packers love to take at the receiver position, feeling like 1 or 2 of these guys are going to work out. But why roll the dice with 3 different dudes when you could have just packaged up a couple picks and got one guy that you know is going to be a stud? That was supposed to be the move, and they failed. They had one goal in this draft, one test to pass, and they failed. Get Aaron Rodgers a receiver, a true number one threat at receiver, and they failed. I didn't like that from the Green Bay Packers. There's another draft in here that I wasn't all that, this Colts draft, and I've learned over the years to not really go against their GM, who I really like, but Chris Ballard, man, I'm starting to sour on Chris Ballard a little bit. Alec Pierce is your receiver pick here that's such an Indianapolis Colts pick. They still don't have a number one receiver. Alec Pierce is not it. As much as I love Michael Pittman Jr., I've said this already. If you want to make him a number one, fine. He's a back end of the league number one. I think he's a high level, one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the game of football right now. But this Alec Pierce, like, they keep throwing these types of picks, similar to Green Bay, at the receiver position. I don't care who your quarterback is. They still don't have a number 1 wide receiver in Indianapolis. They still don't. And that's the problem. Every year you keep cycling through these quarterbacks, and then you get mad when the quarterback, tops out at the divisional round or the wild card weekend, and they can't get past there. You know why? Because he doesn't have enough. That's why. And you're still doing that with Alec Pierce. You lose a tight end. I actually like this move here in Jelani Woods, the tight end out of Virginia, because you lose a tight end who retired at the end of the season, and now you add another big, hulking figure at the tight end position for your quarterback to get the football to. And so that's a nice pick. But then after that, Bernard Ryman, I'm not a big fan of his. He's raw, and maybe he'll turn out to be really good. But tackle was one of your biggest problems last year. It's part of the reason you really got hurt last year. Is because your left tackle position wasn't good. I don't think Bernard Ryman is the answer. He could be. I don't think he is. Nick Cross. I like Nick Cross a lot. I really do. I don't think it's a terrible pick. But, I'm uninspired by this draft. Yet, the Colts continue to be one of these teams that everybody looks at and says, oh, look at Indianapolis. They got this dominant run game, this, that, and the third. The defense is solid. Their roster is really solid. They don't have enough stars on their football team. That's the problem in Indianapolis, and it'll continue to cripple them. These are the types of drafts that'll keep the Indianapolis Colts as a solid football team, but one that doesn't scare you. I didn't love this draft from the Indianapolis Colts. I thought it was solid, but it wasn't a needle mover for me. In a division where it's open season, it's up for grabs. And if you make the right moves in the draft, I thought they've done some good things in free agency, and some acquisitions, but if they would have knocked it out of the park, they would have packaged up. Like, they had the audacity to move back from 42 to pick up more picks. You shouldn't be moving back. You should be trying to get the most talented football player that you can get at 42. If anything, you should be packaging up picks to go and get one of these elite wide receivers. They should have been looking to go get a guy like George Pickens. Like, that's, and I get it. Injury history. You've already got enough injured wide receivers on your football team. You're not looking to add another one. I get it. Okay. But that's the kind of player you should have been looking. If you weren't going to trade into the first round, which I don't blame you for not doing. If you're going to trade, did they have a pick? Did they have a first round pick and they traded out of the first round? I don't think they had a first round pick. They gave that up to Philadelphia, right? If you weren't going to have a first round pick, which you didn't, and then you had the 42nd pick, if you're not going to trade back up into the first round, then either you should have been aggressive to go up and get one of these receivers, or you should have been picking at 42. You know, they went with the more is better approach, quantity over quality. I don't love that approach. Not in this particular draft for where you are as a football team. If you're one of those teams that you got a bunch of holes to plug, then that's one thing. This Colts team, their roster, it's a solid roster, but they need more juice. You didn't add any juice here. You added more solid football players. So I didn't love this. But let's talk about the biggest loser in this draft for me. And the biggest loser in this draft is Baker Mayfield. The quarterback position as a whole, the league spoke loud and clear. Okay, they made it very clear to anybody watching the draft that they didn't believe in the quarterback position this year in the draft. And for all of the talk leading up to the draft, there were mock drafts that had Malik Willis as high as number 2 to the Detroit Lions until the 4th round. There was not a single quarterback selected in the 2nd round of the 2022 NFL draft. You had the first quarterback go off the board at 20, Kenny Pickett to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then you did not have another quarterback go until the early stages of the 3rd round when the Atlanta Falcons took quarterback Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. And that's when you started to see the quarterback dominoes fall. Falcons grabbed theirs. Then the Panthers were like, shit, they got theirs. We better get ours. So they went ahead and they took Matt Corral. And then eventually Malik Willis came off the board in the 4th round. He was at the draft. That's gotta be a lonely feeling. Lonely. I'm so lonely. I have nobody. He was at the draft. He was iced out thinking he was going day 1. No later than day 2. Brother was there until day 3. At that point, you went back to the hotel. You're like, man, F the draft. I'm about to go home. And you probably got the phone call while he was at the hotel packing his shit up, about to go home, catch a flight. He's like, I'm going home. I don't need this shit. And he finally gets the phone call. And then Sam Howell goes in the 5th round to the Commanders, and Carson Strong doesn't get drafted at all. The Eagles end up picking him up as an undrafted, free agent. That said, Baker Mayfield's the biggest loser of the weekend. Here's why. There were talks about the Carolina Panthers trading, and they still very well may trade for Baker Mayfield. It's not a foregone conclusion that they're out of the Baker Mayfield business. However, it was a bad weekend for Baker Mayfield. He needed 1 or 2 teams to come out of this thing without a quarterback so that the next option was either he or trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. Everybody that needed a quarterback, with the exception of Seattle, and they've said this very adamantly, we're not interested in Baker Mayfield. You can keep him. We're good. Everybody that you could even start to sniff around, like a Carolina, for instance, they got Matt Corral. You say Atlanta, they can't be satisfied with Marcus Mariota. Okay, they took Desmond Ridder. I don't love Desmond Ridder. He's a carbon copy of the guy you got starting for you, which kind of makes a lot of sense. If that's how you want to run your football team, what better guy to draft behind Marcus Mariota than Desmond Ridder? He kind of plays like him, very similar game. But the Falcons, the big point here, the overarching theme, if you will, is the Falcons got their guy. They don't need Baker Mayfield. Another team that you could have said Wonder if they need a quarterback. The Tennessee Titans can't be satisfied with what they got out of Ryan Tannehill in the postseason last year. Did you hear Tannehill speak? Did y'all hear what he said? No. Not the part about not mentoring Malik Willis. No, I'm not talking about that. I don't give a shit about that. He's not wrong for saying what he said. His job is not to mentor Malik Willis, but to get himself ready for the season. And if Malik Willis learns from him by watching, or, he asks for some pointers and Tannehill can help him, sure. I'm not going out of my way to tutor you. I'm still trying to hold on to this job and prove that I belong. You're here to take my job. So, no, he doesn't have to mentor him. I remember Brett Favre saying it once upon a time about Aaron Rodgers. It's not my job to mentor his ass. He learns from me, great. If not, not my problem. That's why you got a quarterback's coach. I'm talking about the part about him saying he went into a deep, dark depression and had to seek counseling and mental help after the playoff loss. He was terrible. And he probably couldn't sleep for about a week. He knew that game was lost because of him. And then it makes it 10 times worse that the team you ultimately lose to goes on to the Super Bowl and almost wins. You're thinking to yourself, if we beat them, who's to say we're not in the Super Bowl? Remember the Titans, a lot of people forget this. I forget this from time to time. The Titans were the #1 seed in the AFC. The playoffs was supposed to go through Tennessee. Who believed in the Titans? Not I. I had them getting dispatched by the Cincinnati Bengals. Before the playoffs even started, I said Cincinnati's going to beat the Vegas Raiders, and then they're going to go to Tennessee, and they're going to beat the Titans. I did not expect them to go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. I thought that's where their cute story ended. I was wrong. But I knew the Titans were going to lose. Why? Because Ryan Tannehill isn't good enough. They even went out and grabbed Malik Willis. So you look around, Seattle's like, I'm good. I'm not interested. Carolina's like, I got one. I'm good. Atlanta's like, yeah, I grabbed one too. I'm good. Tennessee's like, yeah, I'm good too. I grabbed one. What are you going to do with Baker Mayfield if you're the Cleveland Browns? Like, you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. I think he's due something like $16 or $19 million that you're trying to get off your books. And he's just sitting there. You have no interest in playing him this year. Whether Watson gets suspended or not, you have zero interest in playing Baker Mayfield. None. You don't want him on the roster. And I get it. He doesn't want to be there. You don't want him there. What are you going to do? What are you going to trade him? Like, I think the biggest loser of the entire offseason is Baker Mayfield. He ran his mouth. He ran his mouth thinking that someone was going to come and save him. For whatever reason, he thought his body of work was great enough that somebody was going to drop everything they were doing and all the plans they had this offseason and make a play for him. He got his feelings hurt because the Browns were interested in Deshaun Watson. And instead of him manning up and saying, you know what? I'm going to prove to y'all that y'all were making a mistake by going behind my back and trying to replace me. I'm going to go out here and ball on y'all ass. Instead of him doing that, he bitched up and decided, I don't want to play here anymore. You hurt my feelings. I want out. I've been disrespected. All right, somebody come and get me. You seen that Twitter meme of the dude that's like, hey, y'all want me? And it's like a little poll question, and it's 100% no, and he like this. That's Baker Mayfield this offseason. Hey, who out there want me? And it's 100% no. Nobody in the league wants Baker Mayfield. Not at the contract that he's currently under on that rookie deal. If he gets released, somebody will come calling for sure. But I'm not giving up any draft capital. I'm not eating that 19 or whatever, 16, 19 million, whatever it is for that final year of the deal to figure out if Baker Mayfield's any good. I'm good. And the rest of the league has spoken. And he went from running his mouth and having all the progressive commercials he could stand and making money hand over fist off the field and being in a really good spot in an offense that suits his skill set with a tremendous run game. They added Amari Cooper, so he was going to finally get a real #1 weapon out there. And he ran his mouth and pissed it all away. And the Browns got spiteful. Oh, you want to play like that? Huh? Okay. No, get back on the phone, call Deshaun Watson's agent and tell him we'll fully guarantee him $230 million. See if they can turn that shit down. We'll show Baker better than we can tell his ass. We don't want him no more now. Since he doesn't want us, we don't want him. Deshaun wasn't turning that down. He tried to act like, it was always Cleveland. No, it wasn't. You were going to Atlanta. You were going home. That deal was done. You were trying to recruit. You were recruiting Jameis or Juice Landry, and you were recruiting Leonard Fournette to come to Atlanta. You were already sizing it up when the Browns called with an offer you could not refuse. Nobody wants Baker Mayfield. And I don't blame anybody for not wanting Baker Mayfield. He's the biggest loser right now because he went from just a year ago. I mean, what a difference a year makes. Truly. He went from a year ago, us having the conversation about when is he going to get that extension? It's time for him, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson to get that extension. Who's going to be first? That's the conversation. You go back in the archives and you take a look at what we were talking about this time last year. We're talking about which one of these quarterbacks is going to be the first to get that extension. It turned out to be Josh Allen. He's the only one that got it from that 18 draft class. Lamar's still holding out. Don't really know what the plan is there, but Lamar looks like he's about to play the hell out of the Ravens, milk that situation for all it's worth. We'll see how it goes for him, and hopefully it works out in his favor. But Baker, it never got the offer from the Browns. And he had an awful year last year. Dealt with a ton of injuries. I actually thought he was tough last year. He showed toughness. Just keep your damn mouth shut and say, all right, let's run it back. I'm healthy this year. I'm about to show y'all better than I can tell y'all. Perfect offense for his skill set, and he effed it up. Now, who knows what the future holds for Baker Mayfield. And the Browns, they're getting antsy now. At first, they were like, look, we're not in any hurry to get rid of Baker Mayfield. If we find somebody that wants him, cool. We would love to do business, but we ain't tripping. Now they're like, yo, I want this $16 million, man. I want this $19 million, man. Like, whatever that number is, it's a big number. Whatever it is, I think it's like 19. I want this $19 million back, man. Like, this dude is, every time I look at this dude or look at his name on a sheet of paper that says he's still a member of the Cleveland Browns, I think about $19 million that we could be getting back in our pocket. Somebody need to come get this man up off us. We'll see. I think he was the biggest loser of the weekend. So anyway, I digress. We're going to talk more about the draft. We're going to talk about just about every team's draft next week. I think next week will be the time. This week is just so helter-skelter for me. So I think next week we'll sit down and we'll really start to talk about every team's draft and what I think they ultimately did in the draft. And I think things will calm down next week. We'll get into some rookie mini camps. I don't give a shit about those, but people will want to talk about them anyway. But we'll talk about these draft classes and what they look like on paper and what teams truly got better, So we'll talk about that next week. But let's get to your comments now as we switch gears to social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder here on the show. Let's get to some super chats from some of you out there. And if you're out there, you want to have your comment read, you got something to say, something to add about this draft, something that you want to add to the conversation, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. You know how it goes. For those of you who don't, I'm about to put a graphic up on the screen that will help you with that. Use the hashtag LouieTLive. Have your comment read. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, super chats are the way to do that. I see that I have a couple of super chats that I need to get to, so we will knock those out first, and then we will get to any hashtags that you guys may have. So let's get to the first super chat of the evening, and that's all the way up here somewhere, I think. No, it's not. It's all the way down in here. Here we go. Johan Solo. So I like the play on his name already. The first night we got Jahan Wick. I think that's my favorite one to this point. Jahan Solo is another one here. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Jahan Solo, who writes, Dak Vader, watch out. Rebel Commanders here with the Force. I'm a reception smuggler in the X-Wing, Y-Wing, and the Z, winning the draft for what we need. So heavy, Star Wars talk there from Jahan Solo. And I think a lot of people were hypercritical of the pick Washington made in the first round. And I think a lot of that was out of ignorance, just pure lack of knowledge on the kind of football player that Washington was getting in Jahan Dotson. And I think once people went back, cleared their head, because a lot of times fans get fixated on particular players. I think a couple of players that Washington fans were fixated on were Chris Olave and Kyle Hamilton, and both of those guys were available at 11, and Washington, chose to trade back. Actually traded with the Saints, knowing the Saints were coming up to take Chris Olave, so they were willing to give Olave away, and they never had the opportunity to draft Kyle Hamilton. He was taken by the Ravens. I don't know if they would have drafted him had he been available, to be honest with you. I think they were really focused and really set on drafting a wide receiver, and so much so that after day one, GM Martin Mayhew said, it's funny that some of these guys got linked to us, and we really weren't interested in those players. I really, truly think they were talking about safety Kyle Hamilton. A lot of people linked him to Washington just because of the Buffalo nickel and Washington not really having a dominant presence at the safety position, and then having to cut ties with Landon Collins. It just made a lot of sense for a number of people, but I don't know if Washington ever truly put it out there that they were interested in him. And I don't know if they ever really truly showed that they were really interested in him. That said, I think Washington fans were really upset. I think that's where a lot of the vitriol for the pick of Jahan Dotson came from. And then you get to day two, and a lot of those same people that were pissed off, that, were ignorant about the pick, went back, watched the highlight tape, and said, oh, this guy's actually really good, changed their mind. So they got themselves a really good football player in Jahan Dotson at number 16. Chilled Dude, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Chilled Dude, thank you for being a member of the MOBB Rights. Hey, Lou. What's up, Chilled Dude? How are you and yours doing? We're doing fine. Thank you for asking. What about you and yours? Hopefully you are doing outstanding, and so is the rest of your family. He says, Jets had a great draft. I'm excited about the schedule release. Is that crazy? No, it's not crazy. He says, draft time is a crazy time. Much love. It is a crazy time, but we love it, man. I was just talking to a couple of my buddies on the phone earlier today, and I was telling them just how much of a burden was lifted off my shoulders when the draft was over, because it's just so much work that goes into the draft, so much film watching, so much energy and time invested in a process that, honestly, it's not like I work for a team or I work for a scouting service. I just work for myself, but I enjoy it. I'm not going to lie to you. It helps me to know what players around the league have, skill sets that they have, by watching all of this film that I watch. So I know what teams are getting in the player that they drafted. That said, it's a lot of work, man. And then you add the twins in, and they make things any easier this year. It was just good to finally get the draft over with. But it was a lot of fun. I think this was one of the most exciting draft parties that I've had. The both days were exceptional. I thought we just were, really vibing. Everyone that was in attendance, I thought, enjoyed themselves thoroughly. And so I really had a great time. The Jets did have a magnificent draft. I think they had the best draft of any team in the league. That's why I started with them in my winners section. And they got better, man. They got a lot better. And I thought the Bears were another team that's in the loser column. I didn't want to pile on them. Everybody's killing the Bears, and rightfully so. Their draft was just awful. And then to make matters worse, they got nothing at receiver. Unless I missed something this offseason, what are they doing to help their young quarterback? Like, it's the move for Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence, who I felt like those two teams have bent over backwards to accommodate their young quarterback by going out and filling the cupboard up. I felt like the Bears are going in reverse. Like, they're doing everything in their power to make sure that Justin Fields fails by not getting him any talent. Like, what are they doing in Chicago? They drafted Velus Jones, and that's it. That's the only receiver that you take. As if you still have Allen Robinson on your roster or something. It's the only receiver you take? Are you kidding me? Like, and I like Velus Jones. I don't want to sit here and act like Velus Jones is minced meat or chopped liver or something. Because I think he's super talented, but you got to it's got to be more. You got to add more than just one receiver. Anyway, much love to you, chilled dude. Thank you for the super chat. HTTR for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. HTTR for life writes, always popping in right after work. Got to support the content. Really, truly do appreciate you, HTTR for life. I've never been more excited for a season. It's mainly because of the first year with the name. You know, I'm less excited about the name, more excited about actually having a quarterback that may be able to do some damage. And he may ultimately stink. And he may be everything that Eagles fans have been warning us about. And you know what? The Colts might have been right to get rid of him. None of that stuff is founded right now. None of that stuff rings true. And he may be a lesser version of himself. All right. And that may be true too. I'm dying to find out. Because I know what I've seen from this guy in the past, and I know what he's capable of. And he's never, and I repeat, never had a collection of talent around him quite like the collection of talent that's being put around him in Washington. If Logan Thomas is healthy at the tight end position, you go 2 deep at the tight end position, whether it's Bates or Cole Turner. You might even be able to go 3 deep at the tight end position. You go 4 deep minimum. I think 5, because don't count out Cam Sims. You go 5 deep at the receiver position. And if you get anything out of Dax Milne, you could go potentially 6. I know a lot of Washington fans saw that we signed Alex Erickson today. We'll talk more about that tomorrow on the show, but on the command post, that is, not on the podcast. But, you go 5 deep bare minimum at receiver with the top 4 dudes all being top level high picks in their respective drafts. Curtis Samuel is a 2nd-round pick. Terry's a 3rd. Diami's a 3rd. And now Jahan Dotson's a 1st. He hasn't seen that kind of talent in any of his stops in his career at any team. All right. And you talk about 4 high-level talents that he'll be playing with. Terry's his best number 1 he's ever had. And Jahan Dotson could be a number 1 receiver himself, to go with a Curtis Samuel and potentially Diami Brown breaking out while he's now an afterthought. Like, it's the perfect storm for Carson Wentz to explode. They got 3 running backs now, so that cupboard's full. And the offensive line is a solid group. It's not one of those knock your socks off, put your dick in the dirt offensive lines, but they get the job done, okay? And they added another ex-Carolina Panther. And I honestly think with our offensive line coach, you can go get these ex-Panthers and shine them up and get them to play some of the best football of their careers. Like, our offensive line coach is one of the best in the business. So I just feel good about the season. And that's why, because you got Carson Wentz and you got all these weapons that he may be able to, use at his disposal that he's never had in his career. The defense still worries me. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know what we're getting out of Chase Young. I don't know what we're getting out of the defensive tackle position and the depth or lack thereof. We did help address that with one of our picks, but still linebacker still an issue, or so we think. I don't know if it's truly an issue or not. And then the secondary, it's a question mark, but you got stuff, but we don't have any depth at corner. That's the problem. So interesting times if you're a Commanders fan. That's for sure. John Livingston, my guy, JL Smooth. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, John, thank you so much for the generosity. Really do appreciate you. Writes, what up, late night Lou? What's good with you? JL Smooth says, hope all is well. It is. Likewise, I hope the same can be said for you and yours. Says, so I'm just trying to give you my best and worst draft, in my opinion. Best, the Jets. They closed the gap considerably. Felt like that. Now they got to go out and execute, right? But, on paper, it felt like They went from the doormats of that division to, nipping. I still don't think they're at your level, but they're nipping at the heels of the Patriots. It felt like that's the kind of move they just made. The Dolphins aren't slouches themselves, but feel like they really made a move to make things quite interesting. Like, you can't just look at the Jets as 2 wins if you're a team in that division. You got to fight them boys now. He says, and in my opinion, jump to number 2 in the division. They still got to go out, and Zach Wilson has to play consistent ball, and they still got to go out and do it on a consistent basis. Last year, they had some big wins. They beat Cincinnati. They beat Tennessee. That was 2 of the better teams in the AFC conference. And it was, I hate when I say that. It was 2 of the better teams in the AFC. But they also got their asses kicked like 3 or 4 times where they gave up 50 points. So they got to, you said they closed the gap considerably. Now I need to see the consistency from that football team. But I agree. He says the worst, the Bears. I know Jones is fast, but help Fields out. I couldn't agree with you more. The Bears, I should have named them. We're going to talk about them, though. I just didn't want to pile on them because so many people have been killing the Bears draft, and I was among them. When I saw what they did and the totality of their draft, are you kidding me? You did nothing this offseason. Like, you spent so much time searching for a new GM and head coach. It's like you forgot about free agency. And like, you didn't do any homework there. So you didn't go out and maybe you didn't have any funds and you didn't have any money. Maybe nobody wanted to come to Chicago. That's a realistic possibility too. But you did nothing in the offseason, and then you turned around and doubled down by doing next to nothing in the draft. So I love Velus Jones as a special teams contributor and, a dynamic receiver, but that's not enough. You needed 2 or 3, bare minimum 2, probably could have used 3 receivers in this draft. You took 1. Shame. I couldn't agree with you more, JL Smooth. I couldn't agree with you more. Protect Sports Network. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Yo, Lou, what up, bro? Are we winners in the draft? ? No, we're not winners in the draft. I thought our draft was really solid. I don't think we're winners in this draft. I think we did a admirable job given the circumstances. You come into the draft with 6 picks, you leave with 8. Some of the movement on the board was outstanding. Getting Sam Howell in the 5th is great value, so we say, but clearly he was there in the 5th for a reason, right? Like, he may turn out to be one of the crown jewels of this draft class. Who knows? He could be the next Tom Brady, guy that everybody passed on. He gets picked in the 5th round and he tears the league a new one. But that's rare. Generally, the league passes on a guy 18 times like they did Sam Howell, and you get him in the 5th round and you feel really good about it. You won't feel as good about it 3-4 years down the road. So we'll see. But the draft was solid for Washington. It wasn't, a game-changing winning draft. It was a good draft. You filled a lot of holes and voids on your roster that you had coming into the draft, which is what the draft is supposed to be. You're supposed to build your roster through the draft and supplement your roster and fill some of the holes and vacancies in free agency. Well, Washington didn't have the financial resources to do that in free agency, so they had to do it in the draft. And I thought they did a solid job of getting value with the 2 trades to take having only a 1st and a 2nd and a 4th in the first 4 rounds and turning that into, a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, and 2 4ths, right? So 5 picks in the first 4 rounds, which is where you really want to do your damage. Then they flip one of those 4s and package up a 6th and get 2 5ths, which you still felt like there was tremendous value, and you get 2 of the players that you think are going to help you in the upcoming season. And not necessarily Sam Howell, but that could be a guy for the future. And then Cole Turner at the tight end position. So they did Ullman-like work, but it wasn't enough to elevate them into the winners category. But I think it's a good move. Some of the moves made were good moves, I should say. Thank you for the super chat. Protect Sports Network. Let's see. Got another super chat here from Dejan Bell. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Dejan writes, James Brad would be the best commander ever. He would. He would go straight to the top of the list of any ex-Panther player that Ron Rivera got to sink his teeth into the first time around that he's brought along for the ride here in Washington. I don't think it's going to happen. I wouldn't rule it out. I would not rule it out, but I just don't see them spending any more free agent dollars. Like, you have to be selective in how you spend your money, and knowing that you have to pay some players. You got to pay Terry. You got to pay, Cole Holcomb, if you so choose. This is the last year of his rookie deal. You got to pay Cole Holcomb. You got to pay Montez Sweat if that tickles your fancy. You have to start putting yourself in a position to retain some of these players. Cam Curl is coming up here shortly. Like, you don't want to, botch this thing. You got some young players that you feel like are part of the solution that you would like to hold on to. And you have to be able to be in a position to make that happen if you're Washington. So I don't think you're in a position to be signing another cornerback if you're the Commanders. You've already invested a 4-year. You're in the third year of a 4-year, $40 million deal with Kendall Fuller. You're in the second year of a 3-year, I think it was like 50, might have been $48 million or something like that for William Jackson III. You're in the second year of that 3-year deal. So that money's coming off the books soon, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're, investing so much at the cornerback position that some other position on your team has to suffer. So I just don't see, because Bradbury's not going to play for pennies on the dollar. Like, and there's ways to set that deal up to where it's a very insignificant amount of cap space this year. But if you do that, then you're going to really get hit cap-wise the next couple of years on that deal, whatever it is. Whether it's a 3-4 year deal, you're going to get hit in years 2 and 3 of that deal before probably having it lighten up in the last year where you could probably get out of it. And there's no more guaranteed money. So I don't know if that's where they want to put themselves. I highly doubt that that's what they want to do, especially knowing that if Carson Wentz works out, then they'll probably restructure him and they'll be pushing money down the road with him. That first year, they'll probably not be on the hook for a ton of money if they restructure with him. They don't do it now because they could have saved themselves some money, but you don't want to have any more guaranteed money tied to Carson Wentz, because if he doesn't work out, you want to be able to move on from him, which you will be able to next year because of the way his deal is set up. But if he turns out to be what you're looking for, then you extend him next year and you spread out that money, and now you're pushing that money down the road. So you don't want to keep doing that with other players as well. So I don't see James Bradbury ending up in Washington, but it's a interesting dynamic. A lot of Washington fans are chattering about it because the Giants have to do something. And clearly no one's going to give them what they're looking for when they know the Giants are up against it and probably going to have to release him. I think he's just going to end up taking a deal. And there are some teams with some bread left for a rainy day. And, Washington will be among them. But I just don't think they have enough when it's all said and done. But, we'll see. Stranger things have happened. Let's see. Got another super chat. This one is from Luck. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Luck. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Luck, writes, still working on Rivera for y'all, but until then, y'all need anyone shot, just let me know a time and where they park. I'll be there. Luck always talking about some damn violence, man. Why don't you try loving somebody? Okay. Rivera is good, man. Like, no need to try to stalk my man Rivera out and do harm to him. He's good, man. You'll see. Hang in there. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. JL Smooth, 105.3. John Livingston, JL Smooth. Writes, Lou, I was watching a bunch of draft recaps, grades, which is nonsense. Of course it is. But I saw a bunch of analysts predicting Sam Howell to be in for you guys midseason. Thoughts? In my mind, there is no way in hell he's in midseason for the Commanders. Now, here's my logic. We have not only one, but two capable quarterbacks on the roster. One in Carson Wentz and the other in Taylor Heinicke. Now, we know what Heinicke is. And Ron continues to talk about the quarterback position and how arm strength this year, about having quarterback that can get the football to everywhere that it needs to go on the field without any issues, which is a veiled shot at Taylor Heinicke's arm strength. And he's not wrong, right? Heinicke's arm was a problem last year. We saw it on multiple occasions. He tried his damnedest to get the football out there. He couldn't do it. It's a physical limitation. That said, he's still proven that he's a capable backup, worst case scenario. And the way I see it, Washington, and everyone wants to bring up Carson Wentz's injury history, and that's fine. There haven't been many years in which Wentz has gotten hurt early in seasons. He did get hurt last year early in the season, but he played through it. Matter of fact, he got hurt in camp last year, as a matter of fact, early. And then he was able to be ready for week one and then got hurt early in the season last year, but he played through it. Usually he gets hurt late in the season if he's going to get injured. Whatever the case may be, whether it's, he gets hurt earlier, or late, or doesn't get hurt at all, it's going to take a lot for him to not be in the lineup, And if he's not in the lineup, the first guy up is going to be Taylor Heinicke. So now anything could happen. He could go down, and next thing you know, Sam Howell's in there. But for me right now, it's Carson Wentz's show until otherwise notified. And then if he can't go, it's Taylor Heinicke's show. So I just don't see how Sam Howell ends up in the lineup midseason, because to me, the only way he plays as a rookie is if you're completely out of it with 2 games left in the season. You're 3-12, and you get to that, final stretch of games. You're like, okay, let's just see what the rookie has, man. Let's just get him out there, get his feet wet, and kind of get the ball rolling for next year. That could happen. But again, Ron Rivera's coached a number of years in this league. I don't think he's ever had a season where he's lost, more than 10 or 11 games. I can't see him this particular season. If we were able to navigate the toughest schedule in football last year with Taylor Heinicke at quarterback against the quarterbacks in the level of competition that we played last year and still managed to win 7 games, if we can do that, then there's no way we play Jacksonville and Houston and Tennessee and Indianapolis and the schedule that we have this year and find a way to not win at least 7 games again. So I just don't see an instance where they're looking to get to Howell, skip over Taylor Heinicke and get straight to Sam Howell. I don't see how that happens. He's going to be the 3rd quarterback on the roster pretty much the entire season. And that's where he needs to be. He doesn't need to play right away. Doesn't have any reason to be put in the game. Of course, if Wentz doesn't play well early, you'll get calls for him. And, there could be an instance where they skip right over Heinicke. If we suck, there's no reason to put Heinicke in. We know what he is. If you have a chance to win a football game early in the season, it's not Sam Howell you're putting in the game. You're putting in Taylor Heinicke. If the season is still in the balance, you're putting in Taylor Heinicke, who gives you the best chance. If the season is done, there's no reason to go to Heinicke. You already know what you have in him. That's when you go to Sam Howell. I can't see our season being over by the midpoint of the season. And that's essentially what I'm trying to tell you. I just don't see any way possible that we look up at the schedule, look up at our record, even if we got off to a terrible start. I just don't see how you look up at the schedule and your record at the 10-week mark and say, okay, this shit's over. Put Sam Howell in there. I don't see that happening. So I don't think it's going to happen. Thank you for the super chat, JL Smooth. My guy, John Livingston, JL Smooth, once again, thank you for the super chat. You're tuned in to 105.3. John Livingston, JL Smooth. Opening night, Lou. If you were a betting man, you think Buffalo goes to LA for that Thursday night. I put a bet on it. Makes sense for the league. Didn't they already announce the first game of the season at the draft? Did you miss that? It's Chargers and Chiefs. Week 1, Thursday night football. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the first game of the season. It could be. Usually the team that wins the Super Bowl hosts that first game, but maybe the Rams. We've seen it before where when the NFL celebrated its 100th anniversary, they had Bears-Packers open up the season. That was a terrible game. And then there was a year where the Ravens won it, but the Orioles, there was a conflict with the Baltimore Orioles, so they couldn't play the game in Baltimore. So I think they ended up playing that game in Denver, and the Ravens got hosed. I mean, they got run, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been New England or somebody else, whatever the case may be. There's precedent set for the Super Bowl winning team not hosting the first game of the season. I don't know if that's the case. They said something about Chiefs, Chargers. Maybe that's week 2. I thought that was the first game of the season, but I mean, Bills Rams would be exceptional, and it could be a repeat of what we saw in the divisional round between the Chiefs and the Bills. That's the kind of high-powered offense that, would be on display between those two teams if they were to, have them do battle. Either way, even if it's not the opening game of the season, I'd like to see that game on national television. That's a great opportunity that I don't think they should squander, whether that's a Sunday night game or a Monday night contest or Thursday. Usually the league likes to put a lot of divisional games on Thursday night football because there's a lot of intrigue for, divisional foes. But whatever the case may be, I mean, that's a really good matchup. I'd hate to see them waste that by just putting it on CBS at 4:25. But, that may ultimately be what happens to that football game. We'll see if LA is let me see. I don't have my phone on me. I don't know where. That's a good question. Where is my phone? It's all the way over there. I'm not getting up to go get it. I can look it up on the computer though. I'm just lazy. I'd rather type it into my phone. But let's look up Chiefs Chargers 2022 because they announced it at the draft. September 15th. What is September 15th? If that's a Thursday, then that's the opening game of the season. So let's look at the calendar and see what September 15th is. It is a Thursday. Now, the NFL starts the first weekend after Labor Day. Labor Day is on the 5th. So that first Thursday game would be the 8th. So I don't think that's the first game of the season. So you might be right. That the Rams will be hosting on the 8th, I believe, to get the season kicked off. Could it be Buffalo? You say you're a betting man. You bet on that one. I'd like to see who else they have on their schedule. That's an intriguing one, but who else are home opponents for the Rams in 2022? Because they could easily go with some family business to kick off the season. I mean, 49ers and Rams, that's getting hot and heavy all of a sudden. The Rams had lost to the 49ers 6 times in a row before beating them in the NFC Championship game. They could just go right back there if they wanted to. That's a juicy one, though. Bills and Rams would be juicy. I agree. Thank you for the super chat, JL Smooth. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Luck. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Luck, writes, Dotson going to make Terry number 2. MF is going to be sad. Look, I could care less who's 1 and 2. Those are designations that, we as fans like to talk about. Teams have to prepare for players. If he's an X, then you prepare for him a certain way. But, they've trained Terry to move around the formation so that he's not just lining up at X like he did in his rookie season. And Dotson has shown the ability to move around as well. So they did that to Diami in his rookie season, moved him all around the formation. I assume Curtis Samuel is going to do much of the same. So it'll be hard to put any of these guys in a box. But if Jahan Dotson comes in and right out of the gate in his first season has 1,300 yards receiving and Terry only has 1,100, so be it. I'm not complaining about it. Then you have two dogs that bark, and their bite is worse than their bark. So I love it, but I still think Terry's going to be the alpha, and I think Terry is going to benefit from, I think early on, Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel, they're going to benefit from Terry's presence first. And then his team start to realize, oh, shit, they got more than just Terry now. They've got to adjust. That's when I think Terry starts to eat. So we'll see what happens. I love the fact that we're talking about a problem of potentially spreading the football around. We went from all we got is Terry to now talking about spreading the football around to multiple guys and having to make sure that there's enough for everybody to get some. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Abner Duran, my guy, Ab. Mexico. What's going on, Ab? Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Abner, writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Ab? Says, hope you and your family are great. Likewise, Abner, likewise. Says, I don't have much to say about the draft. I just want to see Wentz and all these kids ball and hope for health gods and hope the health gods be merciful with us. Indeed. Trying to stay away, as far away, and really just trying to be on the good side of the injury reaper. When he's out to task, shit could get ugly real quick. So I'm hoping that he travels west and stays west and kind of just leaves us alone. But, we'll see. If we can stay relatively healthy, we got a shot to do some damage. I don't know how much damage, but we got a shot to do some damage for sure. Thank you for the super chat, Ab. Greatly appreciate you. Let's see. Got another super chat here from B-Ball God. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. B-Ball God writes, disagree on Willis' take. T. Hill got to the spot. He is okay because vets helped him out. Also believe comments were not team friendly and caused extra drama. So let's take this one at a time. You disagree on the Willis take. He says Tanny Hill, got to the spot he is today because vets helped him out. Maybe that is the case, but remember Ryan Tannehill was drafted, maybe 6th overall, 7th overall. He was a first round pick is what I'm trying to convey to you. He didn't need anybody's help. I mean, of course you want it as a young player, but, and I don't remember who was on that Dolphins roster, right? If he really was mentored at all. I would actually say I doubt it. I don't know if Matt Moore was there with him or someone like that could help him out, but he was a first round pick. You have to worry about somebody mentoring him or whether he was going to make it in the league. He's going to get ample opportunities as a former first round pick. That said, he it's not his job. He said how he felt. I think there's a lot of fake outrage today about what was said. I think that he has his right to feel the way that he feels. Sure, you would love it if he stepped up to the mic and said, I remember what it was like to be a draft pick in this league. My head was spinning and I came into the locker room and I was, all of a sudden the new guy on the block and it was a lot to digest. And so I know what that's like and I'm going to do everything in my power to help that young fella along. Yeah, that'd be great. But the sad fact of the matter is it's a dog eat dog business. And Ryan Tannehill isn't in the business of making friends or trying to get this young fella up to speed who's trying to take his job. Remember, Tannehill is, for all intents and purposes, at his last destination as the guy. I mean, if he leaves Tennessee next year, I don't think anybody's going to go out of their way to sign Ryan Tannehill. Look, he'll be Andy Dalton. He'll get a chance. Somebody will sign him to be their starter as a bridge quarterback. But this is his last opportunity to prove I belong. I should be your starting quarterback. You want to be Alex Smith? You know, you want to be a guy that goes out as a starter. If Alex Smith doesn't break his leg, he's probably still starting in Washington to this day, okay? But he broke his leg. But Alex got another opportunity after being a failed first-round pick for the 49ers. He goes to the Kansas City Chiefs, remakes his career, reshapes it, gets traded to Washington, and he's going to have another chance to be the guy in Washington. That's what could happen to Tannehill. Failed first operation in Miami, gets traded to the Titans, has success there, and he could ultimately get traded next year to a team and have success, but it needs to go well this year. Last thing he needs to be worried about is dragging along a rookie who needs help. Look, if this guy wants to learn from Ryan Tannehill, it's not Tannehill's job to put his arm around him and take him under his wing. It's Malik Willis's job to follow around Ryan Tannehill and to take studious notes, to be a sponge and soak up everything Tannehill's doing, from his weekdays and his weekly workout regimen to when he shows up at the building to watch film, how he watches film, how he takes notes. That's his job, to follow Tannehill around and eyeball him, observe, ask questions even if you have some. But it's not Tannehill's job to go to Malik Willis and say, hey, did you get that? Did you see what I did there? Did you see what we saw there? You see what we're talking about? Did you see the coverage? No, that's not my job. That's the quarterback's job, coach, and that's Malik Willis's job, to ask questions, to take in as much information as possible, to, be seen and not heard. He should be lurking at every corner Ryan Tannehill turns. He should be lurking. What is he doing now? Let me see what he's up to. That's not Ryan Tannehill's job. Again, you would like it if he decided to take on that role, but he's fighting for his NFL life. Can't be fighting for my life. I always tell people, you want to help bring others along. This journey that you're on in life. A wise man once told me, if you want to go far in life, if you want to go fast in life, go by yourself. If you want to go far in life, go together. Okay. For Ryan Tannehill, he's at the point of his career where if you want to help others, I tell people this all the time. If you want to help others in your life financially, you got to help yourself first. I can't help you with your finances if I'm struggling with mine. So if I'm Ryan Tannehill and I'm struggling to keep my NFL career afloat, I can't help you with yours. I'm worried about keeping my shit going. I'm trying to keep my shit tight. So I disagree. We'll just have to agree to disagree with one another. As far as the comments being not team friendly, he answered them, the way he felt. Again, my job isn't to be politically correct in that particular instance. There's certain times where you need to be politically correct and buttoned up. And then there are other times where you just speak your truth. He spoke his truth. If there's a problem here, they can address it with Ryan and say, hey, from here on out, Ryan, when someone asks you about Malik, just say that, you're going to do everything you can to try to help this kid along. That's it. If that's how they feel. And if we hear Ryan Tannehill change his tune the next time he's asked about Malik Willis, then maybe they got to him. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not his job. It wasn't Brett Favre's job to mentor Aaron Rodgers. It was Aaron Rodgers' job to see what the hell Brett Favre was up to and take notes and pointers himself. And, it's the same way. Aaron Rodgers said the same thing about Jordan Love. It's not my job to mentor, a guy that's trying to take my job. It's not my job to make sure that this kid is armed with everything that I know so that he can beat me out as a younger version of myself. No, that's not my job. My job is to go out and play top-notch football and extend my career as long as I possibly can. And if that young kid learns from watching me or he decides to ask me questions, I'm not going to just ignore him. I'm not going to be a douche of a teammate, but I'm not going to go out of my way to show him the ropes. If he wants to ask a question, I'm here. I'm an open door, but I'm not going out of my way. And I think there's nothing wrong with that approach. I'm not saying it's the right way. I don't think it's the wrong way to say that either, though. And, it's not extra drama. It's May. It's May the 3rd when that comment was made. It was May the 3rd. That's not extra drama. It becomes a story now because there's nothing to talk about. And it may be brought up one more time around training camp, and then they're going to move on. He's going to meet the kid for the first time. He's like, man, this kid's awesome. and he's going to, they're going to be good buddies in the quarterback room, and everything will be fine. But he spoke his truth. I don't have a problem with that. Everyone's so sensitive these days. He didn't say anything bad about the kid. He just said, look, the reality of the situation is I was terrible in the AFC divisional round last year. I cost us the game. I had to go through mental anguish this offseason, so much so that I had to seek out counseling to help me get past that mental hurdle and block that I had after the season. I'm focused on me right now. I'm focused on making Ryan Tannehill the best version of himself for the 2022 season. I got no problems with that at all whatsoever. Abner Duran, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Ab writes, by the way, is that Ramon and the braided bunch out there showing out? Ramon and the braided bunch. That's the first time I've heard that one. Yeah, I've seen my hair before. If you're a Washington fan, maybe you haven't. I got plaits, under here. I got braids under here, and a bunch of them. So it's not like when I had Ramon, I had the little, S curl thing going with the one little, hair that came down, and that was Ramon. But I got a lot going on in my head now. But he says, salute and my best wishes to Ramon and friends as well. And they say, thank you. I told you, Ramon, he got sliced and diced a long time ago, man. He made a sacrifice for the betterment of the group, and it will not go in vain. And I owe a lot to Ramon for making that sacrifice. The rest of my hair would not be here without him. So thank you for the super chat. Abner Duran. Pit Fight Entertainment. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Pit Fight Entertainment writes, Big Lou, what's going on with you? Says, Coach Mike here from the Dominican Republic again. Good to hear from you, man. I remember talking to you because your name is so unique. Says, missed out on Hamilton, but I'm not mad at our results overall. Ron isn't perfect, but he is perfect for us. I still believe. I think that is a really eloquent way of putting it. He's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are faults with him as a coach and some of his beliefs and some of the ways he conducts business, but he is perfect for us. I don't know of many coaches in the league that would have been able to put up with the things he's had to put up with and still come out on the other side. There's been a lot. Ron has even mentioned, on numerous occasions that it's a lot. It's not just football when it comes to this organization. It's a lot of things you have to deal with off the field that alters the way you go about your business. But that said, I think he's done a really good job with, what he's been handed over these first 2 years now, going into year number 3. And I'm anxious to see what this third season for Ron Rivera looks like. A lot of people have jumped off the ship already. A lot of people don't believe any longer and want him gone or think that he's going to fall flat on his face with this Wentz deal. The one thing I can say is that, look, he's done everything he can to try to change the image and public perception of the organization. Some of it is falling on deaf ears because of all the things that continue to come out about this organization, mainly the owner. That said, he's done everything with conviction this offseason. Even if he doesn't believe it, he's making sure everyone else does believe he believes it. So I can get behind that he's like, okay, this is the quarterback. This is how we're going to roll, and this is how we're going to move. And I believe in it. Let's do it. So I still believe as well. Someone, my guy, Rio, I had a collab with Rio today or yesterday. And he asked me, do I still believe in Ron's plan? You're damn right I do. You're damn right I do. I haven't wavered one bit. Not one iota. Thank you for the super chat. Pit Fight Entertainment. And I don't know if they feel like they missed out on Hamilton. I'm being honest with you. I think that's the guy that Martin Mayhew was talking about at the press conference when he said a lot of people had us linked to certain players that we really weren't interested in. I think that's who he was talking about, but I could be wrong. Jahan Solo. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Jahan Solo writes, Chargers versus Chiefs is the first Amazon Thursday night, not the first of the year. Yeah, I figured that out. I didn't figure out that it was Amazon. That was the significance of it during the draft. But I figured out by looking at the date of the game. It's on the 15th. That's not the first Thursday night game of the season. That will take place on the 8th. And that is going to be a Los Angeles Rams home opener to start the season off, where they drop the banner, guys get their rings, all of that good stuff. So it could be Buffalo and Chargers or Rams, excuse me. That would be a hell of a start to the season from an offensive fireworks standpoint. So, yep, you're spot on there. Chargers versus Chiefs is the first Amazon Thursday night football game, not the first Thursday night game of the season. Thank you for that, Jahan Solo. Let's see. Dejan Bell. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Jahan Bell writes, or Dejan Bell. Hear me. He says, damn, Big Money Sonny record just got broken. In what way? What are you referring to? Thank you for the super chat, Dejan Bell. Cruisin 26. It's been a little while. It's always good to chop it up with you. Cruisin 26. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, was this the worst draft since 2013 talent-wise? No. So the misconception about this draft was that it wasn't talented because we didn't have quarterbacks headlining it. That doesn't make it a talentless draft. This is a very talent-rich draft class. It's deep with talent. It's not just top heavy, it's talent throughout. Teams felt like they could get starters well into the 3rd, 4th, and even 5th round. So that tells you just how talented this draft class was. And we've been given reasons as to why this was a talent draft class and so deep. I mean, I think another indication, and I think this is always the best indication of how deep a draft class is, talent-wise, is when the draft is over, you look at how many teams are scrambling to sign these UDFAs. Because last year, I can recall there weren't a lot of UDFAs signed. I remember Washington only had one. They didn't feel like the pool of players that went undrafted was that great that they needed to scour through and sign a bunch of guys. They signed one guy, and it was Jared Patterson. That was it. They did not sign a bunch of undrafted dudes last year. This year, they signed a boatload of undrafted guys. Why? Because a whole bunch of really quality football players in their eyes didn't get drafted, and it just wasn't going to be enough room. There was only 256 selections that were going to be made, yet there were probably a good 375 to 400 guys that could have been selected had the draft been longer because of that COVID year and a lot of guys getting that 5th year, 6th year, in some instances, 7th for some guys, year of eligibility with that COVID year that the NCAA said, hey, if you want to come back to school, no matter how many years you've already been here, you're free to come back for another year. And guys took advantage of that and went back to school. And so you saw even more players that would have had to come out last year that come out this year. So no, this wasn't the worst draft since 2013. I think it's one of the worst quarterback draft classes we've seen in a while. I think probably going back to 2019. And even that draft class had Kyler Murray, right? So you can't even say 2019 because at least one stud was available in that draft and went number 1 overall. You probably got to go all the way back to the 2015 draft, I believe. I want to say it was either 15 or 14. 14 was the Manziel draft, so I know that was pretty trash. 13, whatever draft class was with EJ Manuel, that's probably, and I want to say that was the 13 draft. But 15, I think, had to be pretty bad because I want to say 2015 was the Jadeveon Clowney draft, if I'm not mistaken, with Khalil Mack going number 5 to the Raiders, 4 or 5, and Clowney going number 1. Anytime you don't have a quarterback at the top of the draft, it usually signifies that it's not a huge quarterback draft. We saw that in 2017, but it turned out to be a stud draft with Mahomes and Watson. But, Myles Garrett went number 1 overall and Mitchell Trubisky went 2. But that was still an excellent draft class for quarterbacks. That's what this is. This is more along the lines of 2011 with Gabbert and what's the kid from that went to the Titans. Jake Locker and Christian Ponder. Gabbert, Ponder, and Locker draft. But that still had Cam Newton at the top of the draft in 2011. So this draft doesn't have that. Doesn't have what 19 had, which is Kyler Murray at the top. Doesn't have what 11 had with Cam Newton at the top. This is more along the lines of, I think, 15 or 13. Hell, 14 too was pretty bad as well. I think that was a little stretch there where we didn't get any real franchise QBs at the top of any of those draft classes. So 15 I think was Winston and Mariota, now that I'm thinking about it. So it wasn't 15. It was 14 with the Manziel draft. That was pretty bad. And then 13 was the EJ Manuel draft. That was probably, you probably got to go back to 13. That was a pretty bad draft, man, for quarterbacks. Yikes. I think that was a really bad draft in general. Just talent-wise, wasn't all that great in 2013, I don't think. Because 16 was Goff and Wentz. 17, as I mentioned, was Mahomes and Watson and company. 18 was Allen and Jackson and Mayfield and Darnold and Rosen. 19 was Murray. And the reason I can remember this and run it off is because as a card collector, the only cards that matter in the NFL really are rookie quarterback cards. So you try to figure out how far back do I need to go. So anyway, I digress. This wasn't a bad draft talent-wise. And I think you will see that as time passes with this draft class. There were a lot of really good football players that were taken in this draft. 1/6 Devil Doc. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, 1/6 Devil Doc writes, reaction to Hamilton was classic. Reminded me of Aliens when the ship crashes. One character goes on an epic rant. That's effing great. It's game over. The F are we going to do now? Laughing my ass off. I didn't know what they were going to do. Because all we had talked about was receiver. And we talked about three in particular. Drake London, which I didn't want any parts of. And the two Ohio State boys. All we talked about all draft process long was those three receivers and Hamilton. That's it. And, any of the corners, if they should have fallen, both of them were gone 3 and 4. Boom, boom, gone, done. That was dead. So, the initial, hey, what if this guy falls? The suspense was killed within the first 15 minutes of the draft. Both Derek Stingley Jr. and Sauce Gardner, both gone within the top 4 picks of the draft. So you weren't going to get any spillage with the corners. And I talked about in order to get real spillage, you needed quarterbacks to infiltrate the top 10. Well, they didn't. So it was not as suspenseful from a standpoint of the corners. Then you saw, the Drake London go 8, which was a relief. Then you saw Wilson go 10 to the Jets, and you're thinking, okay, well, Olave's here, so which we knew he was going to be there. It was a long shot that he wouldn't. So, okay, they must be taking Olave if they can't get out. Well, they got out. So now you're thinking, okay, let's see if Olave gets to us at 16, and then you find out Olave was a part of the deal. They knew that the Saints were coming up to get Olave at 11, and so they were willing to pass on him. So I'm like, okay, they were willing to pass on Olave. So they got something planned. Like, they got a list of 5 dudes. They traded back 5 spots. They got a list of 5 dudes that they're willing to take should, Jahan Dotson or, whomever is not on the board. We thought Hamilton has to be the next guy. Jameson Williams has to be the next guy. One of those dudes. Well, Jameson Williams gone. Lions come all the way up from 32 to 12 to get him. So, okay, well, that makes things really interesting. Got to be Kyle Hamilton now that you want. And you navigate your way through 13. And then you're thinking, okay, Ravens shouldn't be taking one at 14. We should be straight right here. And they take them at 14. So now you're like, well, shit, you got 2 picks before Washington's on the clock. And you're like, what are we going to do? All the receivers that we talked about are gone. The safety that we talked about is gone. All the corners that we thought were logical fits if they should fall, they're long gone. None of the edge rushers have survived, which we don't really need anyway. Offensive line, is it something you're looking to invest in at 16? So you're like, well, what are we going to do here? And it was like, no, we still need receiver. And so we'll just take the next one. But we didn't think that far in advance because that's not what we talked about. And I explained that, but that was part of my reaction. Like, what the hell are we going to do now? What are we going to do? So, yeah, it was crazy for sure. Thank you for the super chat. 1/6 Devil Doc. John Livingston, my guy, JL Smooth, 105.3. John Livingston, JL Smooth. Right. Chargers Chiefs is week 2. Would love to see Von Miller get some on his former team opening night. Hey, I wanted to ask, only watched highlights. Thoughts on Shakir from Boise? Heard steal of the century and the opposite. I actually like him a lot. Perfect replacement for Cole Beasley. And I know you got Jamison Crowder. That's awesome. But Khalil Shakir is going to be an absolute stud for you in that offense. He's the perfect fit for what you already have at the receiver position. You're going to add him to the mix, and he's going to fit like hand in glove. He's quicker than fast, if you ask me. He actually blew people away with how fast he ran at the combine. He ran like a 4.41 or 4.43 or something like that, like way faster than I anticipated. I watched him at the Senior Bowl. They couldn't cover him. He was unguardable at the Senior Bowl, just destroying dudes left and right. So I thought he really elevated his stock at the Senior Bowl and was the perfect fit for the Buffalo Bills. So I love the pick. I think you guys got a guy that can do a lot of good things inside as a slot receiver, but also a guy that can, get up the field vertically, show the ability to run. I don't always think he plays to that time speed, right? When you watch him on tape, don't always think you get that time speed from him. But I don't think that's necessarily what he's going to have to do for your offense anyway. You're probably more interested with him sitting down in zone coverage on 3rd and 8 on a 9-yard route where he hooks up. You're probably more interested in him running a whip route where he acts like he's running a slant, stops, turns, pivots, plants back outside, and just loses that corner / linebacker who's in zone coverage trying to, stay with him and uncovers in man-to-man coverage. I think you're more interested in that than you are him getting up the seam vertically, but he can do that as well. So you're going to love the pick. That's essentially Khalil Shakir in a nutshell. You're going to love the selection for your Bills. It was a great pick indeed. Abner Duran, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Ab writes, my man Lou, given the draft and the roster moves, do you see any scenario Gibby transcending to a slot receiver along with Curtis Samuel? No, I don't. They drafted Brian Robinson Jr. to be a backup running back to Antonio Gibson. They're not giving up on Gibby. They're not pronouncing Gibby dead already. He's still got 2 years left on his rookie deal. I think that is something that they did take into consideration when they made the pick, is that I don't know if they plan on paying Antonio Gibson any money or not when his deal is up. But we've seen flashes of brilliance from Gibby. I think there's still yet more, potential to tap into with this transition from wide receiver to running back. And he's getting better and better each and every single year. But the fumbles are an issue. How many times have we heard Ron, since the drafting of Brian Robinson Jr., bring up ball security? Like, that was a big problem for Ron last year. They benched Antonio Gibson on 2 separate occasions, but they didn't have really any options to go to. I mean, again, they went to Jaret Patterson, but he doesn't scare anybody. You're not afraid of Jaret Patterson coming in the ball game. So I think Brian Robinson is more of an insurance policy. He's another change of pace kind of guy, a physical back in short yardage situations, but also he's a rock toter. He knows how to run the football. He's, got the ability to see it, to be patient, to hit it. And he's a natural running back, something that Antonio Gibson, for all of his attributes and skill set, isn't. Not a natural running back. So I don't see Gibby transitioning back to wide receiver or slot or anything like that. I see them continuing to roll with Gibby. And if Gibby balls out, Brian Robinson's role will be diminished and he'll be more of a short yardage back. If Gibby has injury issues or fumbling issues, you'll see a lot more of Brian Robinson sooner rather than later. Cruising 26, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Cruising 26, who writes, no other position could say it's not my job to train someone without it coming off as selfish. QBs are inherently selfish. But how many positions on the field, and think about this before I say this, I want you to think about it. How many more positions on the field in the NFL is there just one of? Think about that, okay? Think about all the positions. I'm not talking about place kicker and punter because there's only one of those on the roster anyway. There's no one to train for that position. You're the only one. Think about what other position on the field are you it? That if you're not on the field, it's because somebody else took your job or you weren't good enough to beat another guy out. You can have 8 receivers in a receiver room. 4 of you can be, upwards of 5 of you could be on the field all at once. Think about the offensive line. Yeah, even if you're a tackle, 2 of you are on the field. There might be 4 of you in the room as tackles, but 2 of you get to be on the field. Same with guard. The only position that there's only one of is center, but you're still in a room with a group of 5 offensive linemen. And there's probably upwards of 10, 11 of you in a room and as a group. So even if you're a center, you can still play guard. There's other ways to get on the field. Same thing with running back. You're the only guy, but there's multiple running backs, different roles, third down back, things of that nature. Tight end, same deal. You might be the starting tight end, but the 3 of you, at any point, you got 3 tight ends on the field. A lot of teams run 2 tight end sets all the time. Go to the defensive side, same thing. DNs, 2 of you on the field. Defensive tackle, 2 of you on the field. You're in a room of 8 guys, more likely than not, 8, 9 guys as a whole. Linebacker, you might be the dime linebacker or the nickel linebacker, so you're on the field in all of those packages where you take all the linebackers off the field except 1, but it's a room of 6 to 7 guys, maybe even 8, depending on what kind of defense you run, and 3 could be on the field, maybe even more depending on defenses that you run at a time. Same with the safety position and corner. I said all of that to say this. There's no other position on the field where it's you or me. It can't be both of us. It's either you or it's me. And again, the NFL is dog eat dog. I told you, sports is a microcosm of society. And a lot of people don't like to admit it, but a lot of times it's you or me. And people are selfish. And sometimes you have to be selfish. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with being selfish sometimes. That's sometimes the fault of people, that they don't want to be selfish and they don't realize that I need to do this for me first. And you put others before you, and sometimes it's not reciprocated. Quarterback is a selfish position, but a lot of times it's out of necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention. Okay? Things get created out of necessity. I don't have anything that can do this, so I create something that can. When you're a quarterback, you're looking to survive. You want to know why Tom Brady gets suspended and he's chomping at the bit to get back? He doesn't even want Jimmy Garoppolo to take practice reps because he's afraid Jimmy Garoppolo is going to take his job, even though he's the GOAT. Why? Because there's only one guy that gets to play. And it almost worked. Bill Belichick wanted to keep Garoppolo and get rid of Tom Brady, and Robert Kraft had to step in and say, no, Bill, we're keeping Brady. Have you lost your damn mind? Brady would have been gone a long time ago, and they would have kept Jimmy Garoppolo for up to Bill Belichick. It's dog eat dog at quarterback. No other position can lay claim to that. So while, yeah, it's selfish and it's not the team-friendly thing to say that it's not my job to train him, you're damn right it's not my job to train him, because if I train him too good, he's going to take my job, which Malik Willis might take his job anyway. But my job is, if it's not here, it's somewhere else around the league. That's Ryan Tannehill's job. If it's not going to be in Tennessee, and clearly the writing's on the wall, but guess what? Malik Willis wasn't a first-round pick. Hell, he wasn't even a second-round pick. He was a fourth-round pick. So guess what? If I play my ass off, if I take this team to a Super Bowl, Malik Willis won't see the light of day. That's his goal, is to keep Malik Willis right where the hell he is, on the bench. That's what Brett Favre did to Aaron Rodgers. That's what Aaron Rodgers just did to Jordan Love. That's what your goal is. That's what Tom Brady did to Jimmy Garoppolo. Don't let the young fella come in, steal all of your information, and then use it against you to push you out of town. No. I'm going to hold your ass off, keep you on the damn bench where you belong, and I'm going to keep balling out. Again, not my job to teach you what I know. It's your job to extract all the information you can out of me. And so that's why you want to have a Josh McCown on your roster, because Josh McCown knows I'm not the starter and I'm here to mentor this young quarterback. So I'm going to give him all the game. That's why you want one of those dudes around. You want one of those dudes that's been in the NFL forever, understands his role, and he's going to help this young fella out. That's why you want a Chad Henne on your team. These are the dudes that's been around. They're like the gatekeepers. In order for you to get to where you want to go, you got to pass one of these old head quarterbacks that's going to give you all the game you can stand. You're going to be vomiting game when you're done with these old head QBs that's around to give you all the game they got. That ain't Ryan Tannehill. That's not where he's at in his career right now. He's thinking, how can I prolong my career as a starter in this league? Well, one way is to keep Malik Willis's ass on the bench. Another way, if the Titans are hell-bent on getting rid of you, is to play exceptional football so that when they do ship me off, somebody wants to give me a chance to start. I'm not mad at it. I'm not glad at it, but I'm not mad at it. I get the concept. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Joe Rockhead J, writes, what's up, Lou? What's up, Joe Rockhead J? Says, blessings to you and the fam. I refuse to get caught up in rosy what ifs, and I think we can. Pleasantly surprise me. That is a great approach to take. So often as fans, you know what fan is short for, fanatic. So often as fanatics, we get caught up in the hoopla of the offseason, the excitement of what has been added. This is why, if you're a content creator, this is the most fertile time of the year for you, when you can grab the most eyes, ears, and subs, because everyone is excited and hopeful. The worst team in the league last year feels like, why not us this year? And all you have to do is look no further than the Cincinnati Bengals. And again, if you don't have a quarterback that looks like Joe Burrow, that's why, okay? You want to know why not us? That's why not you, okay? However, if you do have a quarterback that you feel like is capable of going on a run like Joe Burrow did last season, then you could be 2-15, 3-14 last year and say, why not us this year? Everyone's got hope this time of the year. However, not everyone's going to actually turn that hope into tangible wins, okay? There will be some teams that are very hopeful right now, and within the first month of the season already realizes it's time to start turning our attention to the 2023 NFL draft. But that's not how everyone feels here on May the 5th. You're feeling like, shit, we did some damage in free agency. We followed up with a strong draft. Oh, if you're a Jets fan right now, you're like, man, we about to tear this shit up. Why not us this year? Zach Wilson year 2? Year 2 of our head coach, Robert Saleh? Why not? Got all this defensive talent coming in. We added all these pieces offensively. Why not this year? Why not? We'll see. But that's why it's such a fun time. But if you're a fan of a team that can constantly and continuously lets you down year in, year out, you're like, look, I ain't falling for the banana and tailpipe. Not again. You got me before, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You won't fool me a third time. And that's the approach you're taking, and I'm not mad at that. I've always said when it comes to Washington, I tend to set the bar low. I'm not going to do that anymore, but I tend to set the bar relatively low and make them exceed that. I always talk about lowered expectations. You keep those expectations low, it's hard for you to be disappointed, but that's no way to live. That's no way to live. I'm not telling you to set unrealistic expectations. I'm not telling you to talk reckless, because that'll get your feelings hurt faster than anything else. And I think a lot of fans did that last year. Got their hopes up, really set the bar high for this team, knowing damn well Ryan Fitzpatrick was your starting quarterback, and they just refused to acknowledge the NFL elephant in the room, that guy never, any team where Ryan Fitzpatrick starts a game for you has not made the playoffs, and they just failed to acknowledge that. The minute that man started the week 1 game against the Chargers, our season was doomed without even having a chance. He was better off having that injury sustained in the preseason and not starting the game. We would have had a better chance of making the playoffs. But in any event, I understand where you're coming from. Pleasantly surprised me. That is music to my ears. I hope they pleasantly surprise me, because even though I think we got a chance to be really good, there's still a cap on it. I want them to take the cap off and go 12-5. Even in my mind, I'm like, man, I ain't seen the schedule. I don't know what we're going to look like, but I'm like, I just can't envision us winning, because we haven't won more than 10 games since 1991. I can't envision us winning more than 10 games. I haven't seen that in eons. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, it's still a cap. 10 games we'll win at most. Pull that cap off and go to 12 or 11 or 13. Pleasantly surprise me. But we'll see. I'm with you, Joe Rockhead, Jay. See. Got another super chat here from Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat, Metaphor. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB Rights. Lou, Morant, though, Ja going off like Jahan about to. I mean, come on now. You see the Grizzly on my hat. You know what it is, man. Ja's a superstar. I kept trying to tell you guys what you were about to witness. All right. The man was born ready for this. He's a trained killer, and you're seeing it. Like, I told you what we were going to do to Minnesota. I wanted to do those boys in 5, but I told you, I said in my heart of hearts, I know it's going to take 6. It took 6. I said, I have no problems going to their home gym and doing them in game 6. We did that. I was disappointed in the NBA I think I told you guys this already. I was pissed off at the NBA for forcing the 2-seeded Memphis Grizzlies to go back home on 1 day's rest and play a Golden State team that had been resting for like 5 days after dispatching of the Nuggets in 5. That pissed me off when the Phoenix Suns ended their series on Thursday night, and the Dallas Mavericks ended their series on Thursday night, and the Phoenix Suns ended their series on Wednesday night. You got us who ended our series on Friday playing on Sunday, and Dallas and Phoenix are playing each other. Why not have them play on Sunday afternoon? Why? Because you want the best matchup in the playoffs left standing to be on your showcase game on Sunday at 3:30. And it hurt us. We were dead tired. We were dog tired, and you saw it, and we still only lost by 1 point. That said, Ja's a dog. I don't know if we're going to win this series or not. That's a battle-tested, grizzled veteran, championship medal Golden State Warriors team that we're going to learn a lot from. That series, a lot of people, after we lost game, we're going to get swept. Whatever. This is no worse than a 6-game series. I think it's a 7-game series, honestly speaking. And I like my chances. I really do. I think we're going to go to Golden State here. We're going to get a split. We're going to go back to Memphis 2-2. I think, honestly, this thing gets to game 7. And then you just see who's got the ability to get it done. And I trust my guys. So we'll see what happens. But Ja's a dog. And you know that. Everybody else is finding that out who didn't know that already. And he's in rarefied air with the 47-point performance. Only 2 guys other than him, Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, scored, 45 or more in 2 playoff games before the age of 23 years old. Like, he's in rarefied air. And it's not just the points. He's getting his teammates involved. He's rebounding basketball. He's been on the precipice of 4 triple-doubles. He's had 1 this postseason, and he's had a realistic shot at 3 others, just falling short. Like, he's doing it all for this team, and he's playing a ton of minutes. So, love Ja Morant, and I love that. I love this team. That's what I want Washington to be, a young team with a superstar. Can we get a superstar? We really need it at the quarterback position. I don't think Carson Wentz is it. It could be Sam Howell, though. We'll see. Anyway, I digress. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Vincent Coe, writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Vincent Cole writes, my Seahawks actually drafted pretty well for once. Not used to this. Is Kenneth Walker day one starter? And also, what do you think of Woolen? So I was shocked, first of all, that they didn't trade out of 9. I was absolutely floored because that's such a Seattle Seahawks move to trade out of 9, pick up more picks, end up with 17 draft picks after only having 1 last season. I thought they were going to try to overcompensate for not having any picks really last year. And they took offensive lineman at 9, which I wasn't shocked that they took an offensive lineman. I was shocked at the one they took at 9. I mean, he was the best one left in Charles Cross, but it was a really solid draft for the Seattle Seahawks. And we'll talk more about their draft next week. As far as your running back is concerned, Kenneth Walker III is definitely a day one starter, if you ask me. There's no one on your roster that's even close to his talent level at the running back position. And I love Chris Carson. He's always injured. So Carson, if he's still there, will make a great, compliment to Kenneth Walker. And again, you may start Carson because he knows the offense and he's a tested veteran. But it won't be long before Kenneth Walker III is getting the lion's share of the carries in Seattle. And Tariq Woolen, the cornerback from, I think, UTSA, if I'm not mistaken, tall, long, fast. He fits the profile of a Seattle Seahawks draft pick. I mean, he's extremely raw, still has a lot of the technical things to get nailed down. But from a skill set standpoint, from a body type standpoint, you don't see physical specimens, at that particular position, the way that he's constructed. So I think that, and I want to take a look at him because I want to make sure I'm not confusing him with another corner. I'm pretty sure I'm talking about the right guy here. 6'2", 6'3", about 200 pounds, 4'26". Yep, 6'4", 205, UTSA. Yeah, I got the right dude. I knew I wasn't tripping. A lot of people were intrigued by him. He's raw, though. Super raw, but man, does he fit the profile of a Seattle Seahawks corner or what? You can't teach what he has. Size, length, speed, athleticism. Now it's about, can he put the full package together? He reminds me so much of Antonio Cromartie. He really, truly does. If he could just put it together, he could have an exceptional career like Cromartie did once upon a time. So, let's see. Is that the last super chat? Yes, it is the last super chat. So, with that said, let's transition to our final segment, garbage time. So, I meant to bring this up a long time ago. I never did because I haven't watched 1 second of it. But have you guys watched any of the USFL? Are you guys even interested? I'm so jaded by these alternate leagues now. I've seen so many come and go, fold up within the first year. The AAF, I actually tried to invest time in that. They folded up before their first season was over. You're watching the XFL. They fold up, and they actually had a good thing going. Then COVID hit, and they folded up. I just see so many of these leagues go under before they even really get a chance. It's not like you're going up against the NFL. It's just the fact that it's not the NFL. You try to play this football in spring and you just feel like, look, man, there's such a thirst and a need for football. Like this, as a society, people just can't get enough of pigskin, right? And so you're like, man, NFL is king. There's not a close second in terms of sports in the viewing population and the popularity. Then the second highest viewed, sport is college football. And so you're like, man, they're thirsting for more football. We can fill that gap, that void in the spring. And it's just not the case. Like I haven't watched, I don't even know what channel it comes on. I haven't checked for it. I have no interest in checking for it. I haven't heard any buzz about it. I haven't had one person say, yo, USFL is some good stuff, man. It's a great product. I've had people ask me, hey, have you checked it out? Are you going to? I forgot all about it. And you know, if you've watched this podcast for any amount of time, usually I ask you guys before it comes out, are you going to check this out? Are you going to give it a run? Normally the first week numbers are huge because everybody's interested. I didn't hear one person talking about the USFL, not a single one. But that doesn't mean you're not watching. So I'm going to ask you guys right now, are you watching the USFL? I am not. And I don't know of many people that are. And I am so jaded, as I mentioned, with these alternate leagues starting up and not, surviving, that I don't know if I'm willing to give another one a chance. But is there anything that you've seen from it that is intriguing? Because even with the XFL, the NFL took a look at some of the things that they were doing. They had like 4-point play or whatever, 5. On these little 2-point conversions, you just slid back a little bit further and you can get more points. And the replay system and how they did it and some of the angles that they had, that was innovative. And so the NFL took notes on some of the things and concepts that they have. Is any of that going on with the USFL? Are they bringing anything new to the table that the NFL may try to adopt? I mean, are there any players? Because we've seen this in the past where, a couple of XFL players ultimately make their way to the NFL. Do you see any talent that may be there that may have been overlooked? It just needed more playing time. Now that, you go play at the USFL, like, is there anything there worth watching for? If you guys are out there and you've watched, I want to just see if I'm going to scroll through this. I don't think y'all are even, talking about the USFL. Y'all are having your own sidebar conversation. So no, I think that is a resounding no from everyone in the comment section. You pretty much tuned me out because you have no interest in the USFL. So you guys have spoken loud and clear. And I think I'm a part of that, community of people that just don't give a shit about the USFL. Haven't given it an opportunity and don't think I'm going to give it an opportunity. So I guess that is it. Metaphor says, USFL, is that on LouieTeeNetwork? I mean, seriously, I know it's not on that channel, but I wouldn't even be able to tell you if it was. Like, I'd have no idea where these games are being played. But in any event, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the 258th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Man, time flies when you're having fun. I put up a 2-piece today and didn't even realize it. It's been 2 hours already. And so you guys are the best. I jump up here at 10:30 at night and you would have thought it was 6:30 in the evening. You guys are riding with me. Some of y'all on the left coast that don't get to catch me earlier in the day, this is right up your alley. But a lot of y'all are East Coasters like myself. So, it's 12:50 a.m. on the East Coast. Y'all got to work tomorrow. This is my job. So this is the beauty of it. Yeah, but I don't get to sleep in. I got twins. They're going to wake me up. I don't get to set my alarm. They are the alarm. So either way, we're all making sacrifices, but I appreciate y'all. I truly, really do. With that said, I think the next podcast episode, I'm going to keep it a buck with y'all. Probably going to be next week because I got a lot going on. It's Mother's Day weekend. Let me just go ahead now that I'm not going to see you guys again. To all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. It warmed my heart to see the Raiders keep the long-standing tradition of Willie Brown, old man Willie, that when he used to come up every second round in the draft, wish all the mothers out there happy Mother's Day. He passed on a couple of years ago. Last year, I think it was fullback John Ritchie that kept the tradition going. This year was Marcus Allen. They have to keep that tradition going. The Raiders have to make sure whomever they send out there gets the memo, make sure that they wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day. And I'm wishing every single one of you out there that are mothers happy Mother's Day as well. And if you have a mom that's here, spoil her. And if you don't, my condolences. but honor her memory. So treasure your moms while they're still here. You know, I've had to learn from others around me that, you know, don't take your mom for granted. So one of my best friends' mom passed away suddenly, and, you know, all he would just love to hear his mom's voice. I've told you guys this already. So, you know, love on your moms this Sunday. And you should be loving on your moms every day, to be honest with you, but love on your moms a little extra on Sunday. Anyway, you guys get out of here. I got one more super chat on the way out from Joe Rockhead J. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Joe Rockhead J writes, what's your thoughts on Hopkins' suspension? I really don't have any thoughts. These things happen. Clearly, this isn't the first time he got popped by the league. He was in the league program already, so he probably was taking something or had a supplement in his diet that shouldn't have been there the first time. He got slapped on the wrist. When you get a 6-piece, that means you're already in the league program because you broke the rules once and then you broke it again. They don't just, the first time isn't when you get slapped with a 6-piece. You know, the first time is now I got to start drug testing you all the time because, you know, you broke the rules once. And we don't find out about the first one. You know, the league does you a solid. Say, hey, caught you this time. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to give you a warning. Don't do this shit again. And clearly, you know, whatever he did or, you know, was doing, he got hit. You know, everybody's going to do, you know, say the same thing. Oh, man, it was something that I was taking that I didn't know. Yeah, you knew. You just didn't care. So he got popped with a 6-piece. It's going to hurt Arizona. Thank God they traded for Hollywood Brown. He got to step up, but they'll be fine. And, you know, it's not a big deal. He got a 6-piece. So we'll see. Anyway, that's going to do it. Oh, here's a super chat right here. Another one. Metaphor. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Metaphor, who writes, is that the US Frisbee League? No, but that might actually be more entertaining than what they're putting on the field, the product they're putting out on the field for the USFL. So, hey, don't sleep on on the Frisbee League. I don't know if it's called the US Frisbee League, but Frisbee, they're a real professional Frisbee leagues. Them shits, they go hard. Yeah. All right. I'm just telling y'all, don't be sleeping on them Frisbee leagues, man. Those are some real athletes too. Okay. Anyway, I digress. You guys get the hell out of here, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will catch up with you guys probably Monday, more likely than not. We'll see how the week goes next week, if we can get back to some level of normalcy. If it's not Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then Tuesday, Thursday. But if you're a Washington fan, of course, you'll see me tomorrow night for the Command Post Live. Until then, you guys take care. God bless and good night. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, good, bad, and indifferent. Good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.